In deciding what type of project I would have an undergrad mentee work on, I wanted to make sure that I had a project that would be almost self-contained, so that the mentee could go through the different steps of research. So I wanted to make sure that it was a project that could be done, the bulk of it could be done during the summer, and that involved a certain amount of field work, but also data analysis. So really the mentee could go through all the steps and see whether research is something they would want to pursue in the future.
When I did the SMART program, I was at the early stages of my research, which was a good thing and bad thing in terms of deciding what to work with my mentee on. On the bright side of things, it meant that there was a lot of choices. I hadn't really dug deep into any one part of my project yet, so I could be a little bit flexible about who I brought on and what kind of skills I was looking for. But on the downside, it also meant that the project could kind of swerve in one direction or another, which luckily it didn't do too much during the time that I was working with my mentee. But I ended up choosing a piece of the project that required 2 people. So we went out and we were auditing street networks, and that process requires a recorder and an observer to work together to do it properly. So that was really helpful to have that extra person, because in my field we don't get these sort of mentees to help us out. So that was great. It was also just a really good project because it was fun. It was a summer activity. We got to be outside a lot. And my mentee actually was from the area that we would be surveying, so he had a sort of a personal stake in it as well. So for all those reasons, that ended up being the best course of action for us, and it's something we could tackle in the brief 10-week time span of the program.
So I decided on the research project for the mentee because I was working on a series of floral symmetry genes, and I was spending a lot of time on a certain group of genes that I hoped to work on for my dissertation. But as I went through graduate school, there was another group of genes that came up in other plant species that seemed really interesting. I didn't think I would have time to work on that subset of genes, so I set it aside as something for future people to think about. But when the opportunity came for me to work with undergraduate researchers, it seemed really natural for me to bring those genes into play for my research. I had already developed a lot of methods for the genes I was working on, and so it was relatively straightforward to put together a list of first round experiments that could be done with these other genes to see if they were present in our plant group, how many copies of those genes were present, and to start thinking about where and when they were expressed in flowers. So it really mirrored the research that I was already doing, but gave an undergraduate mentee the opportunity to work on something that was pretty separate from what I was doing.